Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and Elden Ring. My name is Hello and today I have something really cool to show you. You can very easily become completely untargetable in PvP, meaning the enemy player cannot lock onto you, which is the basis of many playstyles. Not only that, but spells and such won't be able to track you flying off into nowhere. And people can react to this by being smart and say free aiming their attacks or spells, like I did against the first time I saw this build. Or, like this guy, you can just not try and run away and quit out. That's disappointing. Combining this concept with the newly improved Piercing Fang Ash of War though, which hits like a truck and is even faster now, well, it becomes super deadly. So just these two aspects make this build a bit of a beast. But then there's the fun of, say, spellcasting, thanks to our high intelligence in the build on top. Meaning the build works up close, at range, with fast interrupts or huge burst, all while completely untargetable, making it very fun to play. Let's talk about how this actually works. Basically, you've got two ways to go semi-invisible. We have the Ash of War here, Assassin's Gambit, which when used costs a little bit of health, a little bit of FP, and now we're semi-invisible. And then we have the Night Sorcery, Unseen Form, which does the same thing, both lasting 30 seconds, making you harder to track, but together and stacked, they amazingly make you completely untargetable in PvP. That's where it's going to really shine. Let me show you. This is actually me against the player I faced when seeing it for the first time, and that's where it became a problem fast. It's that combination of Gambit and Unseen Form that made him completely untargetable. That forced me to have to free aim my incantations and my attacks with my weapon, requiring a bit of skill and timing that maybe some people just aren't expecting to need. In my experience using this build, players seem to just work out what options they have to deal with it, like their wide swinging attacks, free aiming running attacks, or a jumping attack. The problem with that is, of course, they can and will miss unexpectedly, and you can punish that with a fast combo or spell or the heavy hitting Ash of War we picked, Piercing Fang. I found that locking onto the target and sprinting around them, maybe in a circle or past them, can really mess their tracking of you. I found it very high pressure to play against, but not necessarily impossible to beat. Obviously, I did beat the guy, but I knew from there that I had to try the concept myself and make my own build. And as it turns out, I can be not even squishy with the right stats. I can output scary damage and be completely untargetable all at the same time. A very fun concept. The buffs don't last forever though, 30 seconds each, but both the Ash and spell do not take long to cast. So if you're facing someone who just doesn't want to fight until it runs out, they're in for a bad time because you can just easily reapply it. On top of that, like I mentioned in the intro, spells will lose track of you as well. They just can't lock onto you, so they'll go flying into nowhere. Very effective against spellcasters like this guy. As I showed earlier, he just didn't even try, he just quit out, which is so sad. But let's talk about what we do to make this concept work instead of just being untargetable. Piercing Fang is a great basis to work with. It's a fast, hard-hitting, huge gap-closing Ash of War, great for a thrusting weapon like we have here. It can land an easy 1k health on a low armored target hit, or a good third of someone's health if they are armored up. The damage is increased further with the Spear Talisman we're using, which will increase the damage of thrusting trade attacks, perfect for our rapier weapon here. The main benefit is the massive range of the Ash of War though. It's that great gap closer as well as an attack, perfect for trading or catching someone out because they just don't think it's going to land on them. It does work well in combination though. With the buff, they made the recovery better, meaning you can follow up with your spells or basic attacks or start rolling again pretty much immediately after you use it, which is super strong. The basics of this rapier, the Godskin Stitcher it is just the fact that it's a brilliant heavy thrusting sword. It comes with great range of attack thanks to the long thrusts. The fast and effective light attack combos are great for punishing players in trade, especially when they're getting frustrated with the fact they can't target you. Heavy attacks work well with this weapon too. You have a unique kind of double swing on this one, but because we're untargetable and they're panicking in general anyway, I would honestly just recommend you spam some light attacks or some running attacks to combo with your Ash of War. On the spell side of things though, I am using the Swift Glintstone Pebble, which is low damage but a great ranged option. It's fast chip damage, perfect for interrupting or finishing someone off. The Swift Glintstone is also a chain cast starter, so if you do say a jump cast and then mid-air swap to another one that you can follow it up with a heavy hitting spell that benefits from chain casting, this works amazingly. In my case, I'm running a Duelist Moonblade just due to its power and potential, but there's a lot of great spells that you could pick because of the chain casting potential. A Duelist was improved in 1.07 specifically though, so it's a very good pick. It's cheaper on FP now with better stamina or attack power and even frostbite buildup on guarding enemies. So it was always good, but now it's just stronger. But back to the Glintstone. Swift Glintstone can be bam. It costs barely any FP and has that really fast animation, so you can just spam it and combo it over and over, especially when an enemy is low health and they're panicking. Or when someone's trying to use, say, a long cast or do something at range, you can keep chipping them out and interrupting them. As I mentioned, I've faced a few people who didn't want to take the duel directly until I became targetable again. So you can just reapply it and spam the glintstone at range while they waste their own time. But it's not like the build is weak in itself if you choose to let the invisibility run out. A swift cast and then surprising them with a slow Ash of War thrust, straight into another light attack combo, that destroys people. You've got the chain cast opportunity of the Moonblade and jumping swift glintstone, or the chip potential of just spamming the glintstones. If you keep them guessing, if you keep moving while being really hard to deal with, while being untargetable, and with how fast everything you have in this build is, it's super threatening, super high pressure. But most importantly, I found it really fun. On the other hand, we have PvE. Now, this is certainly more of a PvP build because it's all about being, untargetable, and that only works against other players. In PvE, it's just not the case. In the open world, it is useful and interesting, but in boss fights, it's just not functional. When we're playing the game in open world, exploring and so on, having this stealth ability is actually very useful and cool. Either one is going to give you partial invisibility, masking your presence, giving near invisibility, and making you quieter when you move around. You can even sprint around as long as you're not in their line of sight. That's really useful for getting through awkward areas. Maybe say early game like Stormville Keep, or late game like certain sections of Miquella's Haligtree, which are being really annoying to get through, but when you're invisible, you can bypass a lot of it. Unseen Form does the same thing as Assassin's Gambit, but it does have an interesting effect. It applies to Torrent, so if you apply it while mounted up, you'll make Torrent invisible, not making any sound and not being caught out as long as you're not in their line of sight, which is really cool. But again, neither work even stacked against bosses. But picking either one or both is super useful in open world, but we shouldn't forget, the build still has high damage and is strong in general baseline. It's far from weak. Thanks to the Ash of War Piercing Fang being even stronger now, faster and more damaging, you could rely on that entirely in combat. Bursting out big chunks of health from impressive range, it's no joke. Then you've got the spells to benefit you where needed. It's still strong in PvE, but the whole concept of being untargetable, that obviously doesn't work in boss fights. Alright then, let's explain the build itself in full. There's a lot of reasons why we picked what we picked. So obviously I'm using the God Skin Stitcher. This is the heavy thrusting sword, or a sort of heavy rapier style weapon. The reason we picked this is because it works with the Ash of War Piercing Fang, which is the really effective Ash of War we've talked about. But it does go on other weapons. You could put it on, say, another heavy rapier, or just a regular rapier, or say katanas like the long katana, the Nagakiba. That's a great pick as well. But what's important is that we've got it in magic. That's because we're running 60 intelligence to maximize the S scaling for our spells with the Carrion Regal Scepter. That means we do more damage with the spells that we are running, which is very important. And I found overall that this works better than, say, running high dex and running everything in keen while using very weak spells. The reason we've got the dagger, though, is to actually run Assassin's Gambit. You need a weapon that can have this on it to apply the Ash of War, which is what's giving us that semi-invisibility. Now, it does cost a small amount of health and of course a bit of FP, and now we're sort of strangely invisible and see-through. It's not until we follow that up with Unseen Form that we reach the true untargetable state and no longer can be targeted by other players. However, we can of course swap off that dagger to our actual weapon and fight with this, which is how we're making that happen. For our armor set, we of course are wearing Rosier's set. This is the Spellblade set. Each piece of this gives roughly 2% increased damage to Glintstone arts. So that's magic-based Ashes of War as well as sorcery skills. That works perfect for this build because we're doing a lot of Glintstone stuff and obviously we're using magic damage. Piercing Fang is a very damaging Ash of War, so to increase the damage of that, we have the Shard of Alexander. For our magic damage, we've increased the potency of that with the Graven School Talisman. Now, what we do have is the Spear Talisman. This enhances the counterattacks to thrusting weapons. The reality of this is it actually works on many weapons like straight swords or katanas with their heavy attack. All it really needs to be is a thrust attack, and then it will work. So of course that's most of the attacks of this weapon, including the fact that Piercing Fang is very much a thrust as well. However, that damage increase only works on counterattacks, meaning trades. So as they attack you and you land the attack yourself, that will increase its damage. But it's obviously very good when you're trading with, say, the Ash of War or basic attacks, because it's definitely going to be relevant. Lastly, as a filler slot, we have the Erdtree's Favor, just for extra health, stamina on equip load, but you could run something else. Perhaps if you wanted to run more poise in PvP, you could go with Bullgoat's Talisman. While in PvE, it's a very good idea to consider the Magic Scorpion Charm to further improve your magic damage, but you will take more damage, so I would never recommend that in PvP. Lastly, in the Flask, when you're using that, of course, we're increasing our magic damage with the Magic Shrouding Crack tier, and again, for PvP, extra poise is always good with the Leaden Hard tier. We only have 3 sorceries on our bar. We have Unseen Form, we have the Swift Glintstone Shard, and we have a Duelist Moonblade as my favorite pick for a combo attack, or as I've mentioned, leaping and doing a quick cast to catch people out. Here's a quick overview of my stats though. We don't have 60 vigor, just below that to make the other stats work. 20 mind allows us to have the FP to work with. We don't need any extra endurance. We have the breakpoint of 50 dex towards one of its soft caps, and 60 intelligence to use this staff and get more damage out of our various spells with the scaling associated with that. It'd be nice to have higher than that, but we sacrifice other stats that are too important, so 60 int was the nice breakpoint. But there you have it, the invisible build explained, my picks for what to use and why. And of course, as mentioned, you could pick other weapons or fighting styles. This one just works really well, especially in this patch, thanks to the various buffs we mentioned. It's also awesome to see a unique and fun build that's also really strong in PvP. I'm very glad I bumped into this one. I'd love to give the credit to the guy who I saw, but I only knew his character name right when I was dueling him, which was just Pebbler. Props to him though, either way, really cool idea. What do you guys think? Is there any way you could make this build stronger? I could see it being really effective and fun in invasions though, that's for sure. For now, if you like these build videos, help me keep making them by dropping a like. But otherwise, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.